I hope you all enjoyed the morning session and got something out of one or both of the workshops that you sat in. That's the sort of bread and butter of the event, where, you know, those workshops is where we tease out potential research opportunities. So they're really important, and thanks to all of you who sat in on those and engaged in those discussions. That's ultimately why we're all here. The afternoon session is about really maximising the opportunity while you're all in the room to hopefully give you some useful information, things that are relevant to you. And we have five presentations, about 12 to 15 minutes each. The first will be from Pat Barry, the CEO of the IGBC, Irish Green Building Council, on the National Digital Carbon Database for BIM and the Indicate project that is currently being run and funded with IGBC and Construct Innovate. So this is really to demonstrate to you guys the type of research projects that we have ongoing in the centre at the minute. Martin Searson has kindly attended from NSAI to give an update on MMC certification around Agrément. Paul Butler from Enterprise Ireland will speak about the Enterprise Ireland initiative, the Work Ready Graduate Programme. Aidan Fergal from the Department of Housing will give a quick update on Housing for All and their research requirements, and then I'll talk to you about the seed fund call. So without further ado, I'll bring Pat up to talk about the project that he's currently leading out on.
Hello, can everybody hear me? Great. Well, I suppose you've seen this slide about 100 million times. We always start off with it. This is the impact of carbon emissions in Ireland from the construction sector. That's 23% from the operation of buildings and 14% from the construction and maintenance and disposal of construction. So one of the first projects we have done directly with Construct Innovate, a small little project, was to take our existing EPD data and make it available digitally. Now we had started that process, but when we changed over in 2019 to the new version of 15804, it took a while for the software that we use to actually upgrade to the new standard. So this was an opportunity, and most of our EPD are created under the new standard. So this was an opportunity to digitise that. We've over 204 product data sets from 27 Irish companies. So that was a relatively simple process of taking the data, digitising it into a Norwegian software for EPDs, and then pushing that through to the European portal. The European portal for digital EPDs is hosted by Eco-Platform. So that is an API that allows any LCA tool, and the number of LCA tools is multiplying all the time. You'll have heard of one-click LCA, but there's loads more coming onto the market. Some of them are free, some of them are commercial, but this allows them to access all of the available EPD data and automatically populate their tools with it. So that was relatively simple task. Another part of this project was actually creating awareness around EPD. So we created 2 short professional videos for architects and manufacturers to understand what an EPD is. So the first is simply explaining what an EPD is, for a short video. The second one it's quite focused on architects, explaining how to read an EPD, because we find a lot of architects, if you present an EPD in front of them, they just balk, their eyes glaze over. And one of the simple things talking to manufacturers is they use scientific notation, and architects deal in millimeters and meters, so they don't need to use scientific notation. So I think we spent a good 5 minutes of this last video just explaining what scientific notation is and how to translate it back into real numbers. Because we've had architects, claim that one product is worse than another, when in fact the one product is 5 times better than another, simply because they could not read scientific notation. So they're intended to create awareness. Another part of this is we have created quite a lot of generic carbon data through various projects for Ireland, so that's default data, and we are making that then available through a hub, so that can be imported into LCA tools as well. So I suppose one of the big projects we are doing is Indicate, and Indicate is funded by the Laudes Foundation. They approached us, asked us, they were interested in piloting, creating carbon benchmarks for buildings across Europe and in each country. So they said, do you have a research body? And we were able to go, yes, here's one we made earlier, Construct Innovate. And that allowed us to speed up the process where they could transfer the funding, €250,000 in direct funding to Construct Innovate to carry out this project. Now, that little detail is important because there was a forum in New York about 3 weeks ago called Donors and Doers, where the main philanthropic funds globally have pledged €1 billion to go into research in the built environment. And this is a good prototype of how we can also attract in philanthropic funding. So what this is intended, we first of all had funding through SEAI to develop a national carbon methodology. Then we are piloting this with this project to create 50 LCAs across all typologies to create baselines for Ireland. At the moment, we've lots of people doing LCAs, but they're not talking to each other. So if you go into one, everybody's using one-click LCA. There's hundreds of databases in there. They're not necessarily using the data correctly. They're not doing a full scope. So none of those LCAs are directly comparable. And you can only have directly comparable LCAs if you've a locked-in national methodology referencing common default values and common, a common way, a common scope, all aligned with levels and EN 15978. So that is what we did. So we have been trying to get architects, contractors, engineers, consultants, to quantity surveyors to use this common methodology. Now, once the common methodology is actually locked down and we have ironed out all the tweaks in it, then that will be adopted by tools like One-Click LCA, and we're already talking to them and they've agreed in principle. They will create they will use our common data, common defaults, to have one common methodology for Ireland that you pick from their drop-downs. So that everybody, even if they are using One-Click LCA instead of our very big spreadsheet, which is freely accessible, everybody will be able to work off the same set of assumptions. So as part of this, we're taking in the data through the spreadsheet, which gives us total transparency. There's a whole team between UCD and NUIG, University of Galway, who are then quality assuring that data. So it allows us to identify anomalies, go back to the design team, check where they're maybe put in quantities that are too high. And quite often with our spreadsheet, it's very easy to identify where data has been left out. So we can say, well, where is your, your screed? Because it's aligned with the ICMS 3 methodology for quantity surveying. And the biggest challenge with this project is to get bills of quantities all done to the same consistent ICMS 3 methodology. There's quite a lot of work in converting existing quantities, bills of quantities into a usable format. So that's taken a lot of work. So we're now starting to see the first results come through. We've done 16 buildings and we have another 4 or 5 that UCD have to come through. We still need another 30, and we're making a big plea to the market. But maybe if Paul wants to maybe talk through briefly some of those initial findings, I think this might be the most useful part of the...
Yeah, so...
Do you want to come up to the microphone?
So, I'm not sure how many people here are aware of life cycle analysis, but for life cycle analysis of a building, you look at a building from a modularity point of view. So you look at the different stages of the actual construction of the building. So from producing the materials that are going into those buildings themselves, transporting those materials to site, constructing the building itself, then maintaining the building, and then operating the building itself, and then the end of life of the building. So all that requires carbon associated with each of those processes. So we are able to break down per stage of the building life cycle, which is contributing the most to the carbon of that building itself. So here I've shown the results for A1 to A3, which is the carbon associated with the buildings that we're producing that are going into the building itself. And then the A1 to A5 then incorporates transporting those materials to site, and then the actual construction process of the building as well. So we have some initial results for different typologies of buildings. So again, you can see how the different typologies they're having are having higher impacts than the other. We're still, as Pat mentioned, in the verification stage. So we're right now going through each of the spreadsheets and identifying where different companies have had gaps. So either they forgot to include them as part of their assessment, or they're missing certain data that they couldn't include as part of that. So we're kind of going through that process at the minute in order to get good, high quality information. And then as we verify that data and get good, high quality information, we can then start to set baselines of where we want to be designing our buildings to and how much carbon they need. And then we can set targets of how we start to reduce that over time as part of different design strategies. So just spend a short time here. So again, as part of the methodology that's been developed, we can break down the building in terms of different building elements. So from your substructure to your superstructure, your non-load bearing elements, your facades, roofs, parking facilities, finishings and furnishings, drainage systems, utilities, landscaping, and mechanical and electrical plant, and then start to see where the hotspots are associated with those buildings. And then it also helps us to identify where there's information missing from those buildings themselves. Then again, as we start to dive into the different typologies a bit more, we can start to see where the carbon is associated with the building lifespan. So in this case, we can see that the B4 stage, which is the maintaining the building itself, is having a big contribution towards the carbon itself. So that's because certain building materials are assumed to have certain lifespans throughout the building. So then they need to be replaced, and each of those materials that get replaced requires carbon. So again, we can start to see where the most carbon is with those buildings, and then start to see what strategies we can introduce in order to reduce that carbon. So again, we have that kind of detail broken down across the different typologies. And then as we get more case study buildings, as Pat said, if we can hit the 50, we can start to get much better baselines as part of the project itself. Right, Pat?
And so there's a call out because we still need another 30 projects. So we're only not even halfway there. So we really need you to engage with it. And we are awarding this lovely badge to anybody who actually gives us data that they can put on their email signature. And we also we were offering a stipend to companies that, and we still may be able to, if you do it quickly, a stipend of I think up to 1,500 or maybe up to 2,500, depending on the size of the project, for each data that you do, and we'll hold your hand right through the process of doing it. So, and the other thing that we have is a whole life carbon hub, where we will host all of the methodologies, all of the data, all of the training. So we're trying to pull all of this information together in one place for the industry. And just to note, the trialogue on the EPBD, I think, has started. They've reached some level of agreement now, and whilst it's been watered down in some of the operational aspects, it's been made slightly more ambitious in the whole life carbon aspects. There will now be a requirement for limit values by 2030, and that's why this project is so important. This will help create those limit values for Ireland, hopefully by 2026 or 20, like Denmark. And this follows the exact same methodology that Denmark used to create their limit values.
Thanks very much, Pat. Really valuable project that's going to help the industry when carbon becomes the next currency we need to count on our projects in the future. And once the EPBD is launched towards the end of this year, we'll have concrete detail of what limits and mandates are going to come down our way. So this project is going to be really valuable and really useful in helping us to do that in the future. I'll welcome Martin Searson from NSAI for his presentation on MMC certification.
Super. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to speak here today on modern medicine construction. This has been accelerating over the last couple of years here in Ireland, and what I want to touch upon is the certification scheme that's enshrined in the building regulations here in Ireland. I just want to give you a little bit about NSE Ireland because there's a little bit of confusion. We have various different remits. I just want to, for those who aren't familiar with the 7 categories around modern medicine construction and which technologies are leading the technologies at the moment in Ireland, we're the drivers. So the government have been very supportive of the policies around this, and they have a roadmap for the implementation of modern medicine construction in Ireland. And this is great because they've done a huge amount of work on this side of it, and fair play to the government, they've been very supportive of it, and we're behind that under the Housing for All strategy. And then just want to touch on the Agrément process and then the steps in it, because it's a little bit confusing for some people and the off-site manufacturers. So we want to support that to accelerate it. Just in terms of NSAI, we have 4 different divisions, but standards and certification have to be separate. We have to be seen to be impartial. Can't have a conflict of interest there. So I work on the certification side, but I can't influence standards. So standards are set by industry, manufacturers, academia. You're more than welcome to sit on a technical committee within NSAI, and they do welcome that. And you shape the future of standards within Ireland. And those standards get referenced within building regulations here in Ireland. But we certify to the standards. So we're very much like the referees of the game. We just follow the standards that off-site manufacturers, specifiers, architects, designers, and then we would certify to that. The other side of it, we have a legal metrology side and then a national metrology laboratory as well. So we also do things like medical device certification or automotive certification. So we take the feedback from industry, society, citizens of what you want for the future. We listen to the policy directions and how that's set, but we also have to be cognizant of what comes from Europe and what cascades down through SEN and ISO. And then from that we focus on the sectors and we support those sectors as needed. So just in terms of MMC, there's 7 different categories, but it also has mixed terminology. So you've got like off-site manufacturing, OSM, off-site assembly. So the word is interchangeable. You have modularization, modular construction, design for assembly, and now there's design for reassembly. So there's various terminologies, but they all fall under the same umbrella. And what we followed is from Mark Farmer's report over in the UK in 2016. They have 7 categories for off-site manufacturing. Traditionally, NSAI would have focused in on the green segment there, the product side of it. But as buildings got more innovative and you've got 2D panelized and 3D volumetric solutions, we now have to support that side of it. Mechanical and electrical companies who would have been very progressive in the data center and pharmaceutical sector or bathroom pods would fall into category number 5 on pods. And then we've only one additive manufacturing company here in Ireland that are supporting that. So for us, what we're providing certification is for categories 1, 2, 3 and 5. We're not so much focused on category 5 because they have their own EU directives, pressure equipment directive, low voltage directive, ATEX directive, machinery directive. So we have another team within NSAI called the Sustainability and Built Environment team, and they're focused on category 6 around innovative products, renewables, solar panels, sheep's wool, hempcrete, that type of materials, crushed glass. And then we'll focus on the building system certification. So I just want to make that clear. In terms of the drivers, and as I said, the government have been very proactive on this. They have a roadmap out there, and we have action items that are set in the roadmap. And this all stems to the Housing for All. And it's starting to become a critical requirement now on e-tenders. So there's frameworks, and if you want to bid on public sector projects, you now need an Agrément cert, or you need to demonstrate other compliance to the building regulations. What we have, MMC takes off when and McKinsey report wrote this back in 2019 and 2020, they're publicly available reports, but they said when there's a labour shortage and a housing demand, it's ripe for modern methods construction. And this is what we have here. It's a global issue. We're having issues in Portugal, Luxembourg, San Francisco, Canada, New Zealand. So it's not solely related to Ireland, but we're in a right position now to push on with modern methods construction. And there's great work going on with the CSG, which is Construction Sector Group. They met this morning. There's a subgroup on it. There's a leadership and integration group. The off-site manufacturers are getting more active around it. They could promote themselves a bit more around it, and Construct, Innovate. And then there's a new demonstration park going down in Mount Lucas, which is run by Sulis and leased off the ETB. So there's a huge amount of action going around that and driven by that. These are the publications that are available. Again, all freely online, all referencing modern methods construction, all supporting it. But for where we sit, we're under Part D of the building regulations. It's the shortest of all the building regulations, 19 pages in total, and it's very prescriptive and clear, and that's what we're certifying to. But I was co-author of 3 reports for modern methods construction, and we have a guide, an agreement guide of how you get certified, so they're all freely available. These are the 4 actions that we've been charged with under Housing for All in the roadmap, and we're to strengthen the capacity, so we're increasing our team because we're getting increased demand for certification. And possibly a lot of that stems from post-Brexit, where the British Board Agreement Certification, they're no longer a member of the European Economic Area, and thus we can't use their certification here in the Republic of Ireland because we're in the EU 27. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to help facilitate the gap. It is not the only sole route to market for certification. So let's just be clear here. You can achieve a CE marking under Construction Products Regulations, and you must get a notified body. It takes about 1 year to 2 years. You provide all your technical documentation. And NSAI are a notified body under Construction Product Regulations, but there's numerous ones here in Ireland. And you go onto the EU NANDOS database, and you can get any European 27 jurisdiction and get a notified body. However, if your product is innovative and new, or you're not sure if it's going to take off in the market, you can go to the IOTA, which is based in Brussels, and you can do a European technical assessment. And on their website, they say it takes about 9 months to a year to get certification through an ETA route. And they're both recognised under Irish building regulations. However, in example, there could be a relevant Irish standard. So for the likes of timber frame, there's IS 440, and within that standard, there's a certification route for timber frame manufacturers. But in the absence of all that, because this is very new and innovative, we have to then go down another route, and this is Agrément Certification. Unfortunately, the differences between the building regulations across Europe, they're not all the same. We'd love it if it was all harmonised, everything was the same in Poland, Italy, France, Germany, and we could happily import those products here. We set very high standards of building regulations here. We've recently changed them, and that's because of our climatic conditions and the position that Ireland is in and the effects of climate. So therefore we have to base on that. But these are the routes to market, and there's 4 routes at the moment. We're here to support proper use of materials, but it's up to the manufacturers to specify their intended use. We can't say what that is. They provide the technical literature to us, and we assess it and base it on that. But we're here to support it. Within the agreement process, we're assessing it against the current building regulations, Part A to M. We're also looking at laboratory test results, structural calculations, designs, fire testing. We also carry on-site evaluations, so we're not just looking at we're looking in the off-site factory, we carry out audits of the facilities, we make sure that they have a factory production control, and that's enshrined under the EU directives, that you must have a quality management system and everything is controlled. Just because you take stuff off-site and put it on-site and you go onto off-site, you still need to control the process. You need to make sure it's robust, because at the end of the day, we're protecting the safety of the occupants of the people in these buildings in the future. At the moment, in terms of clients, we had 17 building system certified clients. They're all available on our website. However, one of them has not had enough applications. It was a timber frame interlocking product. It was certified. And when you get certified, you have that for 5 years. So since coming on board, and some of them have more than one certificate at the moment, but we've had new inquiries in the last 3 months. We've had newer companies coming on board, and they want to get certified. And this is excellent. This is what we want to see, because we've got to meet the housing for all needs. And I have some inquiries from China, I have an inquiry from America, I have an inquiry from Estonia. So we're helping and supporting them in that process. And some of the companies also want to push their product. So the likes of ICF, Integrated Concrete Formwork, instead of putting the blocks on site, they're now bringing it back to the factory to pour the concrete and make a 2D panelised mould and then bring it onto site. Or other people are pushing with 3D volumetric light gauge steel structures. Some are bringing the likes of timber and straw into their buildings. So we're here to support that innovation in there. We keep a dashboard of all the metrics, and not many people know this. There's 160 off-site manufacturers here in Ireland. actually with a physical presence, with a physical factory, with staff in it. It's not a factory where they make it over in the UK or in Netherlands and ship it over. This is physically here. Unfortunately, at the moment, we've only 16 or 10% of that market certified, and we need to help that. We've also spoken with the Department of Education, and they have 16 off-site manufacturers. They have a capital spend over the next couple of years to meet the demographic needs, and they would like to get Agrément certified. And then there's some health sector projects that the HSE are pushing on with modular down in the likes of University of Limerick or an emergency ward down in Waterford. So this is where we want to push on with this, and as I said, we're starting to get international inquiries as well in this space. So it's great to see it, and we want to promote that and support it. So in terms of the Agrément steps, we've been charged with enhancing this process and make it user-friendly. So no different to the board BA mark or no different to applying for your passport. This should be a simplified process, and everyone should be able to get through it. What we're doing is we're doing a pre-approval visit. So if we feel that you're not sure whether you're ready to assess, we don't want you to come into the Agrément process because it's quite detailed, it's quite technical, costs a lot of money into it, and we want to make sure that you're match fit and ready to get certified. And we're here to support you on that, and we'll give you a scoring against that so everyone's equally assessed, because we see a maturity level with these off-site manufacturers. Companies have been doing this for 10, 15 years. They're well advanced to somebody who's a brand new entrant to the market. And what we'll do is we'll give the first audit for free if it's done within the first 12 months. Every year when you're in the Agrément, you have to get assessed every 5 years to make sure you're staying compliant. And what we're also supporting the building control and member regulations is we're providing ancillary certification. So we have 2 clients at the moment where we're certifying their light gauge steel installation in a residential development. One's in Dublin, one's in Cork. And we will do an 80-20 Pareto analysis where we will assess the modules both in the factory and also on site for the assembly methods. At the moment, the OPW are looking after that for the rapid housing scheme with the likes of CISC and the off-site manufacturers. And then in support of the Office of Government Procurement BIM mandate, we will provide certification to BIM because BIM is very closely linked to modularisation and enhancing that digitalisation within the space. So in terms of just the simple steps, we ask that companies come very well prepared. They come because we're getting a lot of gaps in the stuff, and we ask you that to read the guidance document. We can support you here. And it's very well set out. It's only 20 pages. It's very prescriptive. We're going to set up a whole load of infographics around it. We're going to guide you through the process, but unfortunately we just can't do it for you. And because it's a complex building system, there's a fee for that application. So we want to make sure everyone is ready for this and that you've got a team behind you to push through on the process. And then in terms of that, then we'll sit down with yourself, understand the system, and we do a thing called a technical assessment specification. So we look at all aspects of the product, the assembly, the choice of materials, the testing, the certification, whatever you have. And then we start looking at your factory, your processes, and then we start making evaluations. And then we'll have a lot of questions to sort with the design team and the technical engineering team. That's where we find the gap is. It's the lack of the engineering, technical design knowledge is where we're struggling at the moment. They come to us and they ask us, what tests do I need, or how many tests do I need to do? It's not our job to tell you you need 10 tests, because you're the specifier of the product, you're the manufacturer, you must specify its intended use and its need, but we can guide you and support you as best we can on that side of it. And once you have the certificate, then it's valid for 5 years, which I think is reasonable value for money, and it's excellent. So we're looking at the likes of durability, the structure, behaviour of fire, thermal interstitial condensation, dampness, air tightness, and then right down to the maintenance of these modules. So durability is meant to last for 60 years. That's what's been specified in the documents. And the difficulty we have is in some cases manufacturers' warranties might only go up to 30 years for external cladding. So we need to come up with another way of assessing it or carrying out testing. And this is why testing facilities, or through the research of Construct Innovate, they can go off and get this. There is some guidance documents, and then we look at your quality control, quality assurance, because we're hearing back stories where there's poor workmanship on site. So it's great, it's getting made wonderful in the factory, lovely controlled environment. However, it comes to site, it gets damaged, bent, people hit off it, or it's not been assembled correctly, or the people weren't trained on it. So we want to look at the competencies and the training around that side of it. We go on to construction inquiry. 185 module residential development now has to be redismantled because there's some foundation issues, and then there's some moisture issues that got into the modules. So the last thing you want to have is damage to your product. Then you have to rehouse all the people, and then you're back and delayed your project. So it's quite expensive to get this right. And then just to wrap up, we're trying to make it easier. This is the process kind of summarised. We'll do a pre-application step with yourself. We'll look at your technical documentation, and we're kind of doing a lot of that for free of charge for people to help them with the process. And when you're ready, within 1 to 4 weeks, so a lot of people ask us the cycle time, how long does it take to get through the Agrément process? We're working on reducing that. We have metrics that we're starting to gather, and we'd love to get it done in 9 months. Love to have it done, but if we also need the inputs from the manufacturers, we need everyone coming together. Because what happens is they come up to us and say, do I need a structural test? Do I need a fire test? And we go, yes, you do. And they go off and get the test, but it's 6 months to book in the test and then to pay the money, and then by the time they get the test results, we're waiting. We can't move to the next stage, and we're waiting for these results to fill in the technical pack. So for us to develop the technical assessment specification, we need the inputs for that. So as much work that we could do up front will make life easier, and then we will turn it around with our team or any queries around that. So we're here to support the industry, and as I said, it's valid then for 5 years from the date of certification, if that's okay. So thank you very much for that.
Any questions from Martin before we go on?
It's a growing industry. It's growing very rapidly, and there's a lot of good work being done by government and industry. And I think the off-site manufacturers, you might be aware, there's 160, so that's something that might need to be gathered or collated or just to show the breadth. And we have a huge exporting potential with it. I know, like we have a lot of high-value engineering stuff from the data centres, the life sciences sectors. So we have huge potential, and there's a lot of buildings here in Ireland, both residential and commercial and industrial, that is done modular. And then the other future is its hybrid building is going to come as well. So you'll be interchanging with materials, playing with the type of materials, swapping out members of concrete with timber to reduce your embodied carbon. So it's all there to support this sector, and we'll see where it goes. But it's an exciting space and fantastic opportunities there for anyone in it.
Hi everybody. It's the wake after lunch. So it's just the kind of pitching hour here where everybody is obviously nice coffee. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Work Ready graduate course program. I'm with Enterprise Ireland. For those of you who don't know what Enterprise Ireland does, it's a state agency. It's involved with the indigenous industry. You've all heard of probably IDA, which is the Foreign Direct Investment, and some of the larger companies that are in Ireland. But Enterprise Ireland deals with the smaller companies, some of them not even smaller, but certainly the indigenous companies, and one of that we try to promote export as well. So it's export work in Ireland, or opportunities of employment in Ireland, and it's about export as well. So we also fund the Technology Centre Programme, and Construct Innovate is one of those technology centres. And one of the programmes that we're promoting, and we ran a pilot last year, and we're promoting now across the whole of the technology centres, is the Work Ready Graduate Programme. So the function of this is essentially provide current relevant training to industrial experience to recently graduated students, to get them into companies to do some research and development, and to support those companies in that. The reason why we're doing that is because we have found that companies that do research and development, and companies that do engage with technology centres and universities actually perform a lot better. We find, so it's one of the reasons why we're doing it. Okay, so what the substance we will do, hopefully, once the students or the graduates are against the end of their 1 year, the placement that we're proposing here, they'll be a lot more ready to rock and roll if they like in the phase comes in. In fact, they may end up working and continue to work in those very companies that they're put in there for. So the benefits of Technology Centre in this case is deeper interaction to the third level for the companies themselves. We're trying always to try and get more companies to work with and to glean from the knowledge that's there. Irrespective of research, they can work on projects, and the KPIs of the Technology Centre are already around competitive funding, staff transfers. That's where we actually are transferring people who have worked in the technology centres and they're going to work on the companies and the new industry projects as well. So the funding, the reason why I'm talking to you about this today is we're trying to promote it to various companies that are here to take on a graduate. And you'll be hearing a lot more probably from Colin and Jamie and those within the centre as they try to promote what they're trying to do and get graduates in there. I think your target is 15 students, so 15 graduates, so that's 15 companies that may well benefit from that. So the training is through basic companies. They are able to access existing formal training modules that are there as well, and provision of bespoke technologies and training programs directed at the industry as well, and training through directed involvement in the technology centre after the project work. So, training will address the following: the research project management method. Okay, so we will have research, somebody who's looking after the program, and the IP management, commercialization side of things, using the modules that are there, assessment tools for company development, funding and support schemes to support company R&D. So ultimately we would like those graduates to become more familiar with the type of supports that are out there. I just had a conversation with earlier that Enterprise Ireland has money for these projects, and unfortunately we're handing back some to the department in this year. We'd like to spend it, we'd like to spend it on youth companies, and we'd like to roll it down. So this is another way of potentially getting money. Graduate support for 12 months. What support? The payment for the graduate and the equipment that they may need through the course of that, the training and course fees, travel assistance, percentage grant rate. It's slightly different. Percentage grant rate is dependent on the size of the company. If it's a large company, they can only support 50%, but if it's a small to medium-sized enterprise, which doesn't cover a lot of businesses, it's 70% of the costs. So the company is expected to pay just 30% of the costs. And then supervision is in the technology centre, and we're paying around 50% of that to supervision. We expect the person who's going to be supervising to do some other work within the centre as well. So I think that is it. Any questions? So this is up to others. Okay, there's more information available on the Technology Centre. If you have any queries, Colin or even myself.
Part of what we're trying to do is add value to the interaction that you have with Construct, Innovate, and by providing high quality graduates and matching them, the graduates benefit, the company benefits, the industry benefits, and we benefit because we have closer relationships with our associate member companies. So this is a fantastic initiative by Enterprise Ireland, something we're very excited about trying to get involved with. And over the next few months, the programme that we've applied for at the minute will probably start in September 2024, so it'll be early next year when we start the active engagement with both the academic institutions to highlight where the graduates are coming from, and also our industry members to start matchmaking those graduates with the industry companies and looking to get placements in place before September. So that's that one.
Thanks very much for this opportunity to speak. I'll only say a few short words, but I'm happy to go into more detail on any of the things that I mentioned, if people have specific questions. So I'm from the Department of Housing. I work in a unit called Climate and Construction Innovation, and mainly on the construction innovation side. But we also would look after the actions in the Climate Action Plan that are housing. And I'm an architect, is my background before I was in the department. Excuse me. So hopefully you'll all, probably in the media, if not in Trinity, have heard of the Housing for All plan. Originally published in September 2021. There was a review and an update in about this time last year, and there's a new version about to come out in the coming weeks. And I suppose this is where our involvement with the work that was already sort of underway with Construct Innovate by the construction sector group commenced. But there's 4 pathways in the plan covering different topics, and then the chapter 5 is, I think the title is, enabling a sustainable housing system, and that covers economic sustainability, environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and many of the kind of the key quotations, I suppose, related to productivity, construction innovation, the areas that we're working in would be in that chapter. So I'd recommend maybe having a read through some of those sections. But specifically in relation to Construct Innovate, which was at the time not titled, but it was called the Construction Technology Centre, there was a line to say that for its first 3 years of operation, and you may all be aware of this, apologies if you've heard this before, but that there would be a prioritisation of residential construction. And then there's a couple of specific items called out, such as modern methods of construction, innovation, BIM, digitalisation and value chains for the residential construction sector. So I suppose that set out a sort of prioritisation. And it was recognised that the leadership of the state would be needed to address the productivity and innovation, I think it's just shortfalls it's described, but the challenges around that. And Construct Innovate is obviously well positioned to support that productivity and innovation development. And I suppose modern methods of construction were identified in that initial publication as being a key measure to enable productivity or support productivity and efficient delivery of housing. So, as I say, there's actions in the original Housing for All, and then when they updated it and reworked the actions, the numbering did change. So just be mindful if you're looking at them, which version of the actions you're referring to. So some of the actions that came out of the 2022 update, we've been working quite closely on. We have published a couple of documents this year which are specifically related to construction innovation and housing delivery. I have colleagues from Department of Enterprise here who would have led, but we would have been closely involved with the development of the roadmap to enable increased adoption of MMC in public housing delivery. So that was trying to bring together all of the public housing delivery models. So obviously the local authorities are building social housing, affordable housing. The LDA, the Land Development Agency, the NDFA would look after a certain amount of housing. And then there are other forms of housing, such as student accommodation. The Department of Further and Higher Education are going to be developing their work in. So this was an action out of the Housing for All plan. There's 28 milestones, 6 themes, and there are a number that NSAI are looking after. There's a number of owners of the milestones, but the Construct Innovate is referenced there, and the work programme of Construct Innovate. We also worked on a publication called the Residential Construction Cost Study, which came out in May and had a number of actions around construction innovation. We looked at 4 other European countries and looked at their construction sector, but it was specifically around construction costs. So that's reported in the Society of Chartered Surveyors of Ireland, who published a number of reports. About 50% of total development cost would be the hard costs, the construction costs for site delivery, I suppose. But topics that came out of that was around innovation, standardisation, modern methods of construction, design standards for student accommodation, for example, which we don't have in Ireland. I'll just mention a couple of other documents I don't work directly with, but are relevant, I suppose, to the work of Construct Innovate. The enhanced grant scheme and remediation of dwellings affected by defective concrete blocks. There was legislation introduced at the end of last year, and ministerial guidelines were published in July. And obviously there's a lot of work to be done on that, and development of research to support the remediation options for that scheme are going to be very important. And I suppose just mention the Climate Action Plan. As I say, colleagues in the department are working in that on those actions, but there's a number of chapters or sections in that document which are relevant to construction, and obviously the built environment, industry, and the circular economy and other emissions. All the images are hyperlinked. If you get these PowerPoints, you'll be able to find them, but they're all pretty easy to find anyway. So I suppose towards the end of last year, when Construct Innovate was established and its funding was in place, it had additional funding for an accelerated housing research programme, and those projects are all coming to their conclusion, I think, or well underway. But the Department of Housing was given an opportunity to submit research suggestions for consideration by Construct Innovate. So in the department, there are about 10 divisions. Some of those don't work in construction or housing delivery. Some of them, Met Éireann is in the Department of Housing, but I should say Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage. But there were 5 that were identified as having sort of relevant work areas, and we would have circulated information to all of them, and these are the units which sort of have been most actively engaged, and it may be that there are other units that are brought into the discussion, but as I say, we're in the Climate and Construction Innovation, which is in the Policy, Governance and Legislation division, but there are a lot of expertise in different areas. So we requested research suggestions at the beginning of the year, and we pointed all of our colleagues to the Construct Innovate pillars, the 5 pillars, with different themes. And then we received 9 quite detailed, quite developed suggestions. And there were quite a lot of other suggestions, but they were not very well developed, and those are sort of being further developed. But we did submit the 9 initial set to Construct Innovate for consideration. And just to give you an overview, hopefully you can see that text, but these are the 9 topics. What we tried to do was identify relevant policies. Obviously, Housing for All is the kind of the starting point, and the Construct Innovate pillars, but also looking at the Climate Action Plan, and we looked at the SDGs, the UN SDGs, and the National Planning Framework objectives, which I haven't included there. But we identified that there were relevant policies, to support all of these, some more than others. Some may be more suited to the range of expertise in Construct Innovate, but it is a very significant research consortium with a very broad range of skills and expertise. But I suppose these were the initial suggestions that came to us. As I say, there's further work going on. I won't read through all of them, but if anybody would like to ask any questions on any specific ones, I suppose the ones, so they've all been reviewed, there's been discussions held since about May, June this year with Construct Innovate, with specific researchers. Some of them I think have made good progress, some of them may not be best placed in Construct Innovate, so we're reviewing that. But I suppose in terms of my own work, 1 and 2 is going to be amalgamated into one project, and that's around developing standardisation of MMC. I suppose that's related to what Martin was talking about. There are many systems coming into Agrément now, but at a certain point, and it would have happened with timber frame in 2009 when the Irish Standard 440 was published, but that there may be opportunities now if the industry is getting to a certain scale to bring in an increased level of to develop a standard, or to just try to develop some standardisation. The other, I suppose, the 3 to 5 are related to the defective concrete blocks, which is, I suppose, why I mentioned the ministerial guidelines. It's not my area specifically, but I can provide a few points on that. Obviously, development of test facilities would be very beneficial to the whole of the construction sector. Martin mentioned that there's very limited test facilities. There is a project in the accelerated programme to develop a test bed for envelope systems, which is already commenced. But these were feasibility studies for further test facilities. And then a number of them related to building regulations, I suppose the universal access and our ageing population in terms of Part N, but other parts of the building regulations as well. And the effect, there's quite a technical point on the technical guidance document J. And then I suppose a more broad topic of the reuse of existing buildings, which covers a lot of policy areas, I suppose. So where are we at the moment? We've submitted these detailed suggestions. Construct Innovate have reviewed them. Some of them will be advanced and are being refined and finalised with Construct Innovate. We are planning to hold an initial workshop at some stage before Christmas. Once the project proposals have been sort of finalised, they'll be submitted to the steering group and then to the Enterprise Ireland board for approval. So the projects would hopefully commence in 2024. And we hold quarterly, what we call quartet meetings between ourselves, Construct Innovate, Enterprise Ireland and the Department of Enterprise, just to track progress and discuss higher level issues around governance and funding and so on. And then, as I say, we're continuing to request research proposals or suggestions which might be of interest to Construct Innovate researchers and address, various policy areas. So that's it. Thanks very much.
That's great. Hopefully that gives you a flavour of some of the work that we're doing with the Department of Housing. Obviously there's a weighted focus on some of the research that we do in the initial phases of in the initial years of Construct Innovate around housing because of the housing crisis at the minute, and those projects are what the department have identified as being of priority and particular importance, and so we're happy to engage with them and help where we can. I just say as well, these presentations are being recorded and when we're finished with the editing, we'll post them up on our website. So if you've missed anything today in any of the detail of the presentations that have been given, they'll be available on our website in the next week or two. What I'm going to talk to you about now is our seed fund call. There's already a video from the information session that we held with our members a number of weeks back on our innovation support section of our website, along with the slides that I'm going to go through today and the application template. So any information that you want about this seed fund call outside of this presentation, go to our website. It's already there already. What the seed fund call is the opportunity for members and academics to get together and be funded in a research project. And what it is it's a €50,000 fund from our core funding provided by Enterprise Ireland that we're making available to consortium partners, academic and industry partners who come together around a research idea to get funding to go ahead and carry out a research project. It's open at the minute. It's been open since the 2nd of October. It'll close on the 1st of December. So we need all applications in before that date. Panic not. There's a likelihood that we will regularly run these seed fund calls. So if you miss out on this one in the first quarter of next year, we will probably open our next seed fund call to try and get industry engaged. The engagement of industry in research and construction in Ireland is not deep historically, so we want to provide especially smaller companies the opportunity to dip their toe into the research water to see what value they can get out of research projects to bring back to their companies, to further them on the path of evolution that they want to go on. Some high-level overview points of interest on the seed fund call. It's open to Construct Innovate members only. So that's our research performing organisations and our industry members, either our associate or our patron members. So being a member is the first way to qualify for funding. We need it to be a collaboration between at least one academic member and RPO member, which is research performing organisation. And in Construct Innovate, currently our RPOs are University of Galway, Trinity College, we're here today, University College Dublin, UCC, the Irish Green Building Council, and our latest member, TU Dublin. So any of the academics in that institution are available to apply for this with an industry partner. The maximum funding available from the centre will not exceed €50,000. You can ask for less than that, but we won't be able to give out more than that in this. And then on top of that, we expect an industry funding commitment of 20%, and that can be made up of a mixture of cash and in-kind contribution, depending on the size of your business. So we don't want to hamper small businesses with a large cash contribution requirement. We want to allow them to provide resources instead to make up their part of the overall project fund. As I said, applications are open from now until the 1st of December 2023. There was a typo on the original where it said December 2024. That's been corrected on the website just for clarity. The applications must be submitted through the template that's available online so that all applications come in the same format. And then just to explain what happens after we get project applications. Each application will be evaluated and scored by an evaluation panel that we have in the centre, and then it will go to through the governance process to our centre steering committee for review and funding approval. And then if funding is approved, there will be a project initiation checklist that each project team will have to go through before we get to contract signing and then project kick-off stage. Just to quickly go through the evaluation process. Once an application is developed and it's submitted, both predominantly led by the academic because that's where their skill is in developing research proposals, it'll be submitted to the centre, who will then carry out an assessment by the evaluation panel. That'll be made up of members of the Executive Management Committee and our Steering Committee. Then a recommendation will go to the CSC, who will review and approve. If that project is approved, there will be an initiation checklist that will need to be gone through, things like commitment of resource from the academics, commitment of funding in place by the member institutions, clarification that IP is defined, background IP and foreground IP, things like that, expected project outcomes and a start date for the project. And then there'll be a kick-off date agreed and contract signed. The evaluation process, so the assessment criteria, there's marks out of 100. It is broken down into project description, impact statement, work plan and budget. Project description is really about what are you trying to do here and what are the benefits of this project to industry, what kind of market impact will there be out of the project, what opportunity is there for staff transfer, where does it fit with the pillars of Construct Innovate, so productivity, affordability and cost, sustainability, quality and safety, upskilling and collaboration. How does it fit strategically with those pillars at the centre, and also national policies that are in place, how does it fit with those also? The work plan, how are you going to actually deliver the project, what is the project team makeup, what's the experience that's in place, and then obviously budget as well. The template that is available online goes into more detail under each of these subheadings, so it's worth understanding what it is we're looking for before you start completing the application process. From an industry contribution perspective, the way we have structured this is that the smaller the company, the less cash requirement we have. So for micro enterprises, which is less than 10 people or a turnover of less than 2 million, we only require 3% of the 20% to be contributed in cash. The rest can be contributed by in kind. Then the bigger the company, the bigger the cash contribution expectation. As project applications are developed, if there is any questions about this, feel free to get in touch with myself or through info@constructinnovate.ie, and we'll come back with a formal response on those queries. The project initiation checklist, then, as I briefly mentioned, it's about making sure that the funding is secured. We have approval from the CSC, the funding model is approved, there's a lead academic who's going to commit to delivering this project. The resources from both industry and academia have been committed and agreed. Milestones through the project are accepted, and reporting throughout on project progress will be recorded as well. Again, background and foreground IP, and then the contract start date and kick-off. So that's it. That's a kind of whistle-stop tour as to what we're trying to do with our initial seed fund. Again, we want as many companies involved as possible, we want as many academics involved as possible, and we also want to make sure that smaller companies and companies who haven't engaged in research before have an avenue to try it out, so that they can hopefully see the value that research can bring to their organisations, and also the expertise that's available in academia in Ireland, how that can help industry as well. So that's it. Is there any questions from anyone on that? I've explained it perfectly, have I? Great. Again, everything is available on constructinnovate.ie. If there's any other questions, feel free to email the email address here. And that concludes our agenda for today. Paul.
Just one question. On those projects themselves, what would you think would be the type of project that would be from this development of a new product? Is it a new service? What is it?
It can be anything. We don't want to be prescriptive to industry. We're looking for you to come up with ideas or challenges that you think research is going to be able to help. You're obviously limited by the amount of money that's available, so we really want to tackle small problems that research can help to get challenges in a relatively short period of time. But no, it's not restricted to product or service. It's really about the industry coming up with the idea, the academic being able to turn that into meaningful research. The other thing is, for industry companies who don't know where to start about matching with an academic who has the expertise that they need to get this project going, get in touch with us. We have a link to all consortium partners in Construct Innovate, and we can be the matchmaker between the industry party and the academic party as well. So if you don't know where to start or don't know the right person to talk to, come to us and we'll hopefully point you in the right direction. So that concludes. Jamie, I might just give you a couple of closing remarks, but apart from that, from my side, I'd really like to thank everyone for attending, for engaging in the discussions today. This is really our opportunity a couple of times a year to get you all together in a room to start talking about research and construction. So it's a really important conduit for us to build our research programme in Construct Innovate. And again, anything that comes out of today that you want to bring further, feel free to get in touch with myself, and I'll do whatever I can. But thank you, and safe travels to everybody.